Welcome to the Diary of Roxy Collins podcast. This serialised fictional podcast records the dating highs and lows of Roxy Collins, a 30-something single mother who is looking for love third time around. Roxy lives in a run-down rented house. She has 2 useless ex-partners and some wobbly bits on her thighs that no diet can eliminate. Can Roxy find someone to look after her and take on her 3 spirited children? The Diary of Roxy Collins is written and performed by Lucy Mitchell, author of the blog blondewritemore.com. The music is written and performed by David Mitchell. Here is today's diary entry.
Sunday, 1:39 a.m. After my drunken fall off the table and into the arms of annoying Dan, I told him to put me down and leave me alone. I'm now staring at George, Maggie's Greek landlord, giving him one of my drunken, intense stares. They always work back home, so why not here? I'm drawing him in with my eyes. George is leaning over the bar. His attractive tanned face is coming towards me. OMG, I want to kiss him like crazy. His thin mouth has curved upwards at the edges and has formed a very sexy smile. "Have you ever been to Manchester, Roxy?" says an annoying voice from behind me, making George pull back. I spin round on my stool and glare at annoying Dan. "No, and I never intend to." He looks a bit shocked, so I spin back to George, who is still gazing at me. I can feel my body starting to tingle. I watch as George grins at me and starts to put together a cocktail. He's using vodka, cranberry juice, peach schnapps and orange juice. He slides it across the bar whilst keeping his eyes fixed on me. As I take a sip, an annoying voice from behind me says, "Did you ask for a sex on the beach cocktail?" George looks startled and turns away. I whirl round for a second time and scowl at annoying Dan. "Is it any of your business what cocktail I drink?" I hiss. Annoying Dan shrugs and takes a swig from his beer bottle before saying, "I didn't think you'd be a sex on the beach cocktail sort of gal." I can feel anger start to sizzle and spit inside me. George has left the bar and has gone to collect some glasses. My chance with the hot Greek landlord has been ruined. Annoying Dan from Manchester is now grinning at me. Oh, he is so annoying, standing there with that cheeky but very sexy smile. I'm now storming off the toilets with a drunken Maggie in tow. "Mags, you have to help me get together with George," I say, leaning against the door frame to hold myself up. "Roxy, I miss him," Maggie wails, hanging her head over the sink. "Miss who?" I ask, staggering over to the mirror. "Vince," she mumbles. "Who?" I ask, getting out my lipstick and drunkenly applying a thick coat over my lips, teeth and chin. "My fiancé," Maggie screeches. "I lied, Roxy. I don't have a string of admirers out here. It's lonely in Greece and I miss Vince." I exhale loudly. "For goodness sake, Mags, why would you want to leave here when you have all these lovely Greek men like George on your doorstep, gorgeous weather and party nights like this?" "So you don't think I should get back with Vince?" asks Maggie, giving me a puzzled look. "Men from the UK are bad news, Mags. I mean, take that annoying bloke from Manchester out in the bar," I say, with an image of Dan rescuing me from the sea and making comments about my deep-sea diving abilities. Mags turns to me and smiles. "He's gorgeous looking though, isn't he?" I roll my eyes at her. Annoying Dan might be handsome, but he's ruined my chances with a beautiful Greek landlord called George. "I think you like him," says Maggie, checking out her curly blonde hair in the mirror. "No way. I'm more into Greek men," I say firmly, flinging my handbag over my shoulder and walking out of the toilets. Maggie marches to the bar. "George," she announces, "Roxy and I have not had enough to drink. Can you give us one of your special cocktails?" 11:24 a.m. I'm lying on my beach towel with the world's worst hangover. I'm alternating between groaning and whimpering. My phone call home earlier made my splitting headache 100 times worse as Matilda informed me that she hates the fact that I'm not with her as Adam, her sixth-form boyfriend, has dumped her. She also told me that Harry keeps fighting with the boy at the street and Toby has started talking aloud to an imaginary friend called Malcolm. Oh God, I feel sick again. An old couple are staring at me as I give the impression I'm dying whilst clad in a string bikini, shades and a straw hat on a beach towel. Oh, here comes annoying Dan from Manchester. He's strolling across the beach and laying out his towel. He really annoyed me in the early hours of this morning with his irritating comments. I'm lying here and just watching him rub suntan lotion onto his very shapely chest. Maggie has appeared looking dishevelled and wearing dark shades. She follows my gaze. "I know who you're staring at, Roxy," she says. I cough and look away quickly. "Oh, he's waving at you," remarks Maggie, giving me a nudge. "Please don't encourage him," I snap. "Didn't you fall off a table last night?" asks Maggie, before lifting a bottle of water to her lips. "Yes," I mumble, as my eyes settle on annoying Dan's muscular back. "Did you hurt yourself? All I can remember is you screaming," says Maggie. "No, someone caught me," I say, trying to avert my eyes from annoying Dan's tanned, muscular shoulders. "Oh, who was it?" asks Maggie. I go silent and look away. "Do you remember me telling you about Vince last night?" asks Maggie. I groan and recall our drunken conversation in the toilets. If my memory serves me right, at the end of it, I actively encouraged Maggie to stay in Greece. Annoying Dan had irritated me so much that I'd gone off UK men altogether. Lord knows why I had to sell the idea to Maggie. My family are counting on me to bring Maggie home, and after a few cocktails here, I'm persuading her to stay in Greece. Perhaps she is now going to tell me that she wants to return home and marry Vince. I sit up and turn to her. If she agrees to come home with me, then I'll be the family hero, and I can forget all about our drunken conversation in the toilets. "You were right, Roxy," Maggie says, as I let out a silent scream in my head. "I am better off out here in Greece." 12:45 p.m. Maggie and I are sat at a local beach cafe waiting for some food. "We should be eating something healthy, like a salad or something," says Maggie, frowning at the image of the plate of chips on the bar menu. "Maggie," I say, lifting my head up from the table, "I have a raging hangover. I need chips." A waiter comes scurrying over with our plates of chips. There are many differences between my cousin Maggie and I, one of which being our eating habits. Maggie picks and plays with her food. She shows restraint by lifting each chip individually and placing it carefully into her mouth. Every morsel of food is carefully digested. I, on the other hand, attack my plate of food like it's my last meal on earth. "Roxy, slow down," orders Maggie, whilst nibbling on one anorexic-looking chip. "Oh God, these chips are divine," I say. "Roxy, you're such a messy eater," shrieks Maggie, pointing at the mess I've made on my food mat. This is another difference between Maggie and I. Her food mats are always spotless, and mine are, well, covered in food. 1:29. We have staggered back to our beach towels. "I still feel rough," I croak. "I'm never drinking again." "Me too," groans Maggie, covering her face with a sun hat. "I think I'll have a quiet night in tonight," I say, looking forward to lying still on Maggie's sofa. "Oh, come on, Roxy, you only live once," says Maggie. I shake my head. I should really take it steady. Sometimes I'm proud of the restraint I can show in challenging situations. 4:56. I'm on Skype to Matilda, who is telling me that Malcolm, Toby's new imaginary friend, is worrying her and she thinks I should come home from Greece. "Matilda, I'm not coming home because Toby has an imaginary friend. It's a phase. He's probably seen something on TV," I say. "I think he might be nuts, ma'am," screeches Matilda, raising her hands with frustration. "He keeps asking Malcolm's opinion on everything." "Like what?" I ask. Matilda exhales loudly. "Like whether I'm a teenage nightmare?" My ears prick up. "And what does Malcolm think?" "He says I am a teenage nightmare," snaps Matilda, shaking her head. Even though Malcolm, the imaginary friend, might be new onto the family scene, it sounds like he already understands Matilda. "Oh," is all I can muster, as Toby walks behind Matilda and grins at me. "Ma'am, Malcolm says you look like you've had too much wine." This imaginary friend of Toby's could become annoying. 7:56. Maggie's getting ready to go out, and I'm lying on the sofa feeling proud of myself for taking things steady. I'm a 30-something mother of 3 kids on a trip abroad. I do not need to go out tonight, and handsome George will be still around tomorrow. "Roxy," shouts Maggie, sticking her head around the bedroom door. "Please come out." "I'm staying in," I say. "That's a shame, as George is looking forward to seeing you in the bar tonight," says Maggie. "Really?" I ask, lifting my head off the sofa cushion. "He's just texted me to say you're a bit of a firecracker and that he hopes to see you tonight," she remarks with a grin. "A firecracker? Wow," I say, sitting bolt upright. A hot Greek man has just called me a firecracker? I don't think anyone has called me that before. 9:34. Maggie and I are sat in George's bar. I think he likes you, says Maggie, as we watch George give me a wink from behind the bar. I'm not getting carried away or anything, Mags, but could you see me working behind this bar with George, I ask, mapping out some future life scenarios. Oh yeah, you would certainly liven things up a bit, exclaims Maggie, gesturing to George for some more cocktails. I gaze longingly at George's swarthy skin and thick dark hair. We would have beautiful babies, I mumble, imagining a couple of pretty-looking dark-haired children running about barefoot and squealing with happiness as George and I proudly greet new bar customers. Hi, Roxy, says a familiar voice. I groan as annoying Dan appears. Maggie nudges me in the ribs. I ignore him and go back to gawping at George. 11:23. Maggie is sat on the toilet, tear-stained and wailing, "Vince!" I'm pacing the toilet feeling agitated with my cousin. Half an hour ago, I was doing some seductive dancing with George. As he was twirling me around, he asked me whether I wanted to go for dinner with him tomorrow night. I couldn't say yes fast enough. The prospect of having dinner with a hot Greek landlord like George filled me with a warm glow, and just as we were about to seal things with a kiss, Maggie decided to storm off in the toilets to cry about Vince. I'm desperate to get back out there and sidle up to George again, but I can't leave Maggie in this state. She drains her beer bottle and wipes her eyes. "I think I love Vince," she says before getting up and rushing out of the loo. "Mags, wait," I cry, giving chase. Maggie races out of the bar and disappears. I stand outside and cry, "Maggie!" A young lad points towards the beach. "She ran that way." I groan. The beach looks dark and deserted. Still, she's my cousin and I don't want her doing anything silly in a drunken state. I've taken off my heels and I'm charging across the sand, calling, "Mags, come back!" My cocktail-filled gut is sloshing around and I feel sick. Maybe running isn't the best idea. I will just slow down and... Ah! Oh, my ankle! I've fallen over something in the sand. My ankle is hurting like hell. I'm trying to stand, but I'm in too much pain. "Mags, I'm injured!" I cry out into the darkness. Oh no, what am I going to do? I can barely walk and I've no idea where Maggie is. Oh, I'm frightened now. My teeth are starting to chatter. "Here, take my arm," says a familiar voice. Annoying Dan is by my side and lifting me gently off the sand. I lean into him and feel a flood of relief wash over me. "Your cousin is back in the bar," says annoying Dan. "Come on, let's get you off this beach." He helps me limp back to George's bar. As we hobble along, I notice how divine he smells close up. His aftershave is intoxicating. I can feel his strong grip of his arm around my waist, and I have a weird tingly sensation shooting up my spine. We've reached the entrance to the bar, and we're just stood, staring at each other, under the glow of the stars. Looking at Dan makes me forget about my ankle pain. He's bending his head towards me. I think he's going to kiss me. Oh, yes! The sound of Maggie stumbling out of the bar and then vomiting into the street has made us both step back in surprise. "Thank you for rescuing me," I whisper. He smiles. "Let's get you two home," he says. With Maggie on one side and me limping on the other, annoying Dan helps us back to our flat. "Goodbye, Roxy," he says, holding me a pack of ice for my ankle. I don't want him to leave. I want him to stay and nurse me. Maggie is slumped on the sofa by the side of me. "She has a date with George tomorrow night," she says in a drunken voice, and then starts hiccuping. Dan looks at me, and then he leaves. Oh, my cousin Maggie can be so annoying at times.